Broncos are the better team. I can't say it any other way.
I don't really think everybody knows what they're about to witness.
I know talent when I see one. I should be an NFL scout.
Jonathan, I don't like that pick. I love that pick.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dorm Debate Podcast, and you are listening to Week 3 reactions. We have gone through the 1 o'clock games, the 4 o'clock games. We are now just about to get onto the 8 o'clock game, which I think is what, Raiders and Steelers?
Yeah, Steelers at Raiders.
Yeah,
so
we could push that one off for a little bit and talk about these insane record-breaking games. I mean, the Dolphins score 70 points for only like the third or fourth time, and it's like the first time since like 1950 or something.
I think 72 is the record all time, and it was like in 1966 against the Giants. I forget what team it was, but
you had to just throw in that it was against the Giants.
I remember it was against the Giants.
I mean, nobody
remember
cared.
the team that did it. Like, I don't even know who did it.
Because you were alive when that happened. You remember it was against the Giants.
I just, as an NFC, I was like, oh, it's against the Giants. I guess because I noticed, because if it was against the Broncos too, that'd be just so like terrible. It was a different team though on both ends. So, but yeah, I was like, I didn't see the game, but I saw the headline. I couldn't believe it. That's a Madden number, and even in Madden, that's kind of like
you got to be playing on rookie.
Yeah, like either sliders are changed, or you're just having something like that high. The quarters must be so long.
Yeah.
Boy, you're playing like arcade mode. Like, it's not simulation or competitive. Like, it's arcade mode play. And not only that,
every offense advantage.
You had Devon Achane 51 fantasy points. Raheem Mostert, how many do you have? 40 something?
45.
Oh.
45. I mean, if you started them, kudos to you. Like, I mean,
that's incredible.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say about them.
I should have known.
But
I didn't start Tua. I knew when I benched Tua that like it's the inverse effect. So
I should have checked your bench before I went live.
Literally like 3 weeks in a row that I just picked the wrong person.
You have to check whatever Caleb does. Because last week you started Tua and you benched Hurts, and Tua did terrible. We got to check your bench. I'm telling you, we'll have a segment.
Should have a segment
Caleb's
on the live.
Bench.
Like, all right, let's just look at who Caleb was benched.
Yeah.
Start any of these guys.
So
I guarantee you they go off.
I'm probably going to be 0-3 because I'm against you, Jared, and you're beating me by 60. So hey, one of those guys, you never know. But that's crazy. I was thinking they should have hit a field goal at the end. I mean, that's already like too much at that point. But to get the record, I mean, I'd be tempted to. If I'm Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, somebody asked him. I forgot what he said after the game, but somebody did ask him, like, why didn't you go for the record? But
I doubt they know in the moment. Like, that's
he probably didn't know.
Maybe someone mentions it on the like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't go into, if I'm playing football, I don't know every major historical stat.
Exactly.
Like, you might be great at football, but like that's like trivia at that point. So maybe he didn't know. Maybe it wasn't.
He did mention something like, "Oh, like, were you running up the score or something?" He's like, honestly, we weren't running up the score. It's just how the game played out. Like that's just how it happened.
Wow. So he's like, yeah, we weren't even trying.
The Broncos couldn't stop
and it's
anything.
an 80-yard.
Well, because the Broncos gave up like a couple touchdowns in the beginning, and then they showed the clip of like they zoomed out and all the sun was on the Broncos side and it was shady on the Miami side, and the players were just getting roasted had no energy left.
Why do teams? What stadium was this? Who was home?
It was Hard Rock.
It's literally made for that, so that
they literally position the stadium like that.
Which I think AT&T Stadium does that too, where the light comes in and it's like if you're on the right side, it's in your eyes. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's a little crazy how these environmental things come into factor, but. I mean, this isn't a baseball podcast, but it always surprises me about baseball fields that some of them are just longer than others. And like, that's a pretty big difference when it's home runs, like football, it's more like, all right, you got to deal with it, but still a one factor and a big reason. And I'm curious to look back on our panic patience, because you see a scoreline like that, you're panicking.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, let me tell you, dude, panic can't even begin to talk about the Broncos. I mean, we won't go into the Broncos, but just to think that last year, I was telling John, they were 2-1, and they had beaten the 49ers 11-10. So at this point in time, they were 2-1 with Nathaniel Hackett, and like I said, bad karma. They have bad karma because Sean Payton talked about Nathaniel Hackett, said it was the worst coaching job ever. Like, it's just bad karma, and now almost a record-setting number gets put on your freaking dome.
Yeah.
I think it was alleged that Peyton said something about Tua as well last year.
See, he's
like
too
negative
cocky,
of him.
Man.
Well, because he wasn't playing at the time though.
One Super Bowl, that's all he's got. I mean,
I don't know what's going on.
We'll see. Well, that wasn't even the biggest game of the day. The one that just finished, Cowboys and Cardinals. Oh. I mean, I don't even know how to explain this. I'll give the stats out. Dallas Cowboys 16, Cardinals 28. The Arizona Cardinals beat the Dallas Cowboys, and unfortunately, Jonathan, our Dallas Cowboys fanatic, is not even here. He said he had a dinner party, so he was over doing
unquote,
that. Yeah. Quote unquote.
As far as we know.
No, I'm just kidding.
He's not here to defend himself. We're gonna hold back. Tuesday.
That was off the cuff. I'm a little pissed off because I picked the Cowboys as my lock. They were my lock at a 12.5 point favorite.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm a little mad, but they lose in Arizona. I mean, look. We said that the Cardinals were trying to lose, or at least me and Jonathan said that. And now Jonathan's team goes into Dallas and gets beat by the team that's
tell
trying
me that
to
they
lose.
were tell me they were trying to lose. They weren't trying to lose.
We have some great clips. If you haven't listened to last week's Tuesday podcast, we have some great liners if you listen to them after seeing the outcome of today.
Yeah.
We have some great
Dude, it played
I was
out
texting
perfectly.
my friends. Well, because up to the half, I'm like, oh, the Cardinals are killing it. But then I was like, oh, but we talked about this on the podcast. They're following the script, and the Cowboys are going to come back and win. And then, I guess they were like, all right, we're done pretending.
I mean,
conspiracy theories aside.
The Cowboys had the ball inside the 10 or 15-yard line 3 times and had an interception and 2 field goals. I mean, how do you have... They barely targeted CeeDee Lamb today, only 4 receptions for 53 yards. That can't happen. You're not going to win games like that. Tony Pollard had 122 yards rushing, which is great, and I think they won the rushing battle. No, they didn't. Oh, my gosh. They lost the rushing battle, 222 yards rushing for Cardinals.
James Conner.
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably and Dobbs, too, if they're combined.
Yeah,
both.
Dobbs had a 40-yard run.
Dude.
I think you were right. You can ball, like you said. I think John, you said, or someone last
James
week said it. Like, he can...
James Conner, 98 yards and a touchdown. Dubs.
Wow.
Joshua Dobbs, 55 yards rushing. Rondale Moore with his 54-yard touchdown run. So those 3 combined.
Okay.
And you got to think, we're talking about the Cardinals doing this against the Dallas Cowboys defense, which was looked at as like the Niners. It was looked at basically the top 2. They were either 1 or 2.
Probably I think people would say they were the best defense in the league statistically. They
did let up the least amount of points going into this week,
considering the differences. Because San Francisco's also definitely up there.
But we've seen the Cowboys in the past struggle when they're not at home. I mean, obviously when they're at home, their defense is very good. But they also just played the Jets and the Giants, the 2 New York teams, in Week 1 and Week 2. So yes, they did look good, but you played the 2 New York teams, which
Zach
sucked.
Wilson and Daniel Jones.
Right. It was just like, so this is, but really it is concerning because like the Cardinals shouldn't have been much of an upgrade, if that. I mean, the Giants just beat the Cardinals, so it shouldn't have been that much more of a difficult game. I just don't. I just don't know why.
Let's.
You mentioned the penalty yards. I'm looking at it right now. 107 penalty yards for the Cowboys.
Yeah, not only the amount of yards, but when. I don't know how much, because I know Red Zone kind of cuts between. But I was watching that game just to see what the narrative is, and it was ridiculous how many penalties. And I'm saying this as an Eagles fan, but it's like a disciplinary thing because I think this has been a trend the past few years that Mike McCarthy's teams have done. Like they do great offense, but then they have they're undisciplined in regards to penalties, and it's still a narrative, but how many big plays got called back because of penalties on the offense, or the Cowboys were just constantly worse than shooting themselves in the foot. Like they were having big plays and like you're looking and there was a penalty every time. Like no discipline there. But I think you also, like, practically speaking, we know I think the past 2 weeks were against 2 poorer teams, John, like you said. But I think most people in the league would have considered the Cardinals to probably be the worst team in the NFL. I would think, because there's a couple 0-2s. It's still early in the season. We don't fully know yet, but we were thinking the main narrative around a team like the Cardinals versus the Chargers is that Cardinals are tanking and trying to get a good draft pick generally, whereas the Chargers were like, all right, maybe they're going to return the boat. It's a different conversation entirely. So the Cardinals still get up to, a bunch of Giants and Jets. I think they still would have been ranked last. And for them to beat, we were joking about it, but for them to beat, I think it just shows, one is narratively, we say this every year, it's we them boys. First 2 games, we're killing it. And then reality hits. A good team, and it's like either the ball, there's a bit of luck, there's a bit of chance. And I think you saw a bit of that. But at the same time, those lack of discipline and penalties, and you saw injuries play a big part. I don't know if you guys want to go into it, but I know the cornerback, Diggs,
Diggs torn ACL.
Terrible thing. And you, even as an Eagles fan, I mean, you don't even have to say that. As a human, you wish him the best, And I think as football fans, as humans, you want people to do well and everything, So it sucks that he's not there. He's a great add to that team, but you definitely saw the team hurt without him. As well as I think they might have had an offensive lineman hurt as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they've had a lot of injuries recently, and I think the one thing for this Trayvon Diggs injury is that it happened on like Thursday or Friday, so it's like relatively late in the week. So maybe they just
the team
weren't
was just
like focused. There's a lot of things that could go into it, but I think for the Cowboys, at least, there's always something, and that's what is going to be coming out of this game is, well, okay, they didn't have Diggs, so let's see them, after a week settling, they know that Trayvon Diggs is out for the season, it's not as fresh. Let's see them play now, because they've been planning with Diggs being their lockdown corner. So we'll see that. I mean, next game, the Cowboys are
they're at home against the Patriots.
Yeah, so that should be a win.
That's easy. Well, they're at home. They'll shut the Patriots out. I mean,
right. You'd think.
Right, we don't know, but I would say that there were, so on top of the big and devastating, you wish him the best in healing and no pain, but on top of the cornerback injury with Diggs, they were missing 2 starting linemen, I believe, on the offense. So I guess what you got to see was the coaching not adjust the lack of a star player, and it's always you can't really replace guys like that. You can just hemorrhage the damage on defense. And then on the offensive line, I think when you have injuries like that kind of amounts to some of the disciplinary issues. And then you also had to pretty much ask Dak to do more than he did in the first 2 games versus being a good team collectively. I think that's why you kind of saw more interceptions where it's like, all right, we're getting more pressure. We're not having as much defensive security. And Dak's no scrub, but I think that's one of the factors here.
Mm-hmm.
Was that definitely not having 2 of your own linemen is going to very much hurt you.
Yeah, and that last interception by Dak, man, was that bad.
Terrible decision. Bad.
He threw the ball with like 3 people around him, got intercepted in the end zone. I mean, it's just time and time again, he just does not show up. Whenever the game is like in his hands or it's on Dak, people find an excuse and say, oh, well, Tony Pollard got injured in the playoff game, and the ref got in the way in the last game. It's like, okay. Like, eventually, at time and time again, you have to say that Dak just maybe isn't that good of a quarterback. Yes, he's above average, but is he that great quarterback that everyone says he is and what Jerry Jones says he is? For me, at least, I don't think he's that great. And to be honest, I want to actually just give a formal apology to Eagles fans, to you, Caleb. Not only did I pick them in my lock, I put the defense in fantasy. I pick them to win the division. This is how they repay me. And I want to say, Caleb, I was so wrong, and I will never do it again. If there's a chance that I could change that pick and go back in time, I would and say Eagles, because the amount of remorse I have for picking the Dallas Cowboys is immense, and I feel so much stupidity that I fell for it again. I just feel so bad, and what I want to say is the Eagles, are going to win this division comfortably. I think they will comfortably win this, and you have nothing to worry about. And from here on out, you have a fan in Connecticut rooting for the Eagles.
I wouldn't say fan. You don't have to root for them. Just
no, because I don't want the Cowboys to win now. I don't want them to win.
Okay.
Disappointed you on a personal level.
They only lost one game. You could still be right. They could still win.
There's still a lot of season to play.
It was
that
to
means
the
a lot,
Arizona
so that's nice of you to say.
Cardinals. It was to the Arizona Cardinals. Like, do you understand
but it was against
where the
Josh
Cowboys
Dobbs.
are? Dude, Josh Dobbs might
He's
be better
good.
than Dak. He might be better. We'll have to have that conversation later. But the Cowboys at this point in time we're clicking on all cylinders. The Cardinals, you don't know what they're just testing out people at this point. And and they lose. They lose. That's crazy. I'm done talking about the Cowboys. Anybody else want to say one last thing? Because
no.
I'm a little sick to my stomach about it.
We'll talk about him again tomorrow.
We will.
You know who Dak is not a bad quarterback, but he reminds me of in his play style, it reminds me a little bit of Brady, just like because Brady would do a lot of checkdowns.
Stop right there.
He'd do a lot of no.
You stop it.
I'm comparing. I'm not equating.
Don't help Jonathan at all.
I am having flashbacks. I am having flashbacks. Global Village.
I'm not saying
Dak was on pace to be Tom Brady. Remember? Jonathan said
yep.
that.
No. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can compare things without equating them. I'm not equating them, but you take the aspect of Brady's game that was kind of boring, where it's like, all right, yeah, he converts thirds with his players, and he check down, third down conversion. That part of Brady's game, I see a little bit with Dak, and that's why I think they do well when everything's clicking, but why it's accurate to say Dak's not an all-star quarterback because of the extra, obviously, million things that Brady would do, but that little extra, I mean, I think it's a safe passing. Sometimes they'll get a deep ball, but no, I don't think the Cowboys, whether it's Dak, McCarthy, or injuries, those are all part of the game. There's still a lot of season to play. But I've said this for a while, and I think I'm pretty set on that. As long as Jerry Jones is the owner of the Cowboys and meddling the way he is known to do, I don't think they're going to really ever make it very far. I just don't think he's humble enough to be like, all right, I'm just going to set it in the right direction and just not be a game manager, a GM. It's my team, but let's let other people make those decisions because as long as he's still involved the way he is, I don't think they're going to win.
And I think Jonathan would agree with this, and this is the last thing. If Mike McCarthy is calling the plays, terrible play calling, just awful. Inside in the red zone, absolutely pitiful. And if that's the case that he is calling the plays, and Jonathan will agree with this, there's still a question mark with Mike McCarthy being the head coach. Still, after 3 or whatever years, The
overarching problem is going to still be there, in my opinion.
The hawk is always watching up in the booth. Let's give it a quick freaking shout out. And John, I appreciate you wearing that. Keenan Allen, 45 fantasy points.
45 fantasy points. Won me,
2 weeks.
I think 2 leagues I have him in.
2 weeks.
That's beautiful.
He's doing great.
Keenan Allen did well, which means the Los Angeles Chargers won a game.
Oh my gosh, they won.
28 to 24 against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. As always,
took Keenan Allen to have 215 receiving yards and 50 passing yards and a passing touchdown for them to win.
He's like, I'll do it myself.
Dude, remember I told you guys, I said that for these two teams, the Chargers and the Vikings, the amount of unluckiness they both have, and with their pitiful defense, the quarterbacks have to play near perfection, if not perfect. Yeah. And let's look at the stats. Justin Herbert, on the winning side, 40 completions on 47 attempts. 47 attempts and only 7 incompletions, 405 yards, and 3 TDs. Now let's take a look at the losing side. The losing Vikings, Kirk Cousins, 32 completions, 50 passes, so that's a lot more incompletions than Herbo, and then 367 yards passing, that's less than Herbo, 3 TDs, which is the same, but the kicker is the 1 INT. Kirk Cousins turned the ball over, but not only that, not just him, but I forget who it was, but it was a receiver or something. got stripped, so there was a fumble. They had some missed fourth downs. Obviously, the last fourth down they could not get. Now, that's not to say the Chargers played a perfect game from any standpoint. I mean, they went for a fourth down to try and seal the game with about 1:20 left. Couldn't convert.
Oh, terrible decision.
Just a lot of things happened. Joshua Kelly was the leading rusher with 12 yards. 12 yards
on 11 carries.
Wow.
I could do better. I
legitimately think I would have had a better rushing game.
I legitimately think I could fall forward for at least 15. So I think what the big thing to come out of this, and I don't want to say too much, but the Chargers freaking won a one-score game, and the Vikings yet again are 0-3 in one-score games this year. Unlucky, that's what they are. There's no skill on this Vikings team. And another thing, the Chargers,
you have Jefferson.
Just because we won this game does not mean all is forgiven. Nothing's forgiven. Brandon Staley is still very, very hot tush on that seat, all right? So he needs to win again and again and again because, Caleb, like you said before we started the podcast, it's week to week. This is not, you won one game, so you're safe for a while. No. Next game, the Chargers play the Raiders. So that is a game that you should win.
Should win.
So,
and then you're on a bye the next week.
Ooh, if they lose,
then we play the Cowboys
for a week, and
then you play the Cowboys, and then you get shellacked by the Cowboys.
So look, you go into the bye week 2-2. That's fine. You know the seat is getting colder and colder. But if you lose and you have to sit and give that front office time to think about that fourth down that you took on our own 25-yard line, and you didn't get it, and we could have lost. I mean, honestly, we were the lucky team in this game.
You guys got lucky.
It was a double-tipped pass intercepted in the end zone. So let's not say Staley was the reason we won. Honestly, Staley was the one keeping the Vikings in it. So Chargers need to win next week against the Raiders. So all is not forgiven. But boy, oh boy, was I so happy that the Chargers won and the Vikings lost because so many people were chatting crap on TikTok about my Vikings take. That it was just 2 games. Like, relax. It was just 2 games. Well, here's 3. Now you have 0-3 in one-score games. Last year you didn't lose a one-score game. The year before that you always lost one score. The inconsistency, it's there. Consistently inconsistent. And the only consistency is that the luck changed. No one. There's nothing else changed. Yeah, the coaches changed, and you get a tight end. You're still in the same position you are 2 years ago. So I rest my case with the Vikings. Chargers, good on ya. Let's go for next week. The next one, a team that I'm very, very, and Caleb, John and I kind of talked about this team already, but I want to hear your thoughts because this head coach is a former Eagle. The Houston Texans beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville 37-17. That is not just beating, that is steamrolling. And not only that, they had a freaking fullback, Andrew Beck, return an 85-yard touchdown. There was no effort. Where is Christian Kirk in this offense? They use him in the very last second. Doesn't make any sense to me. Trevor Lawrence, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. C.J. Stroud outplayed him, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't know what to think of this Jacksonville Jaguars team. They are now 1-2 with a loss to the Houston Texans. So we have a Cardinals win and we have a Texans win. 2 teams. Cardinals actually owned the Texans pick. So before this game started, the Cardinals had the 1 and the 2 pick. And now they both win. I don't know what to compute about the Texans, the Jags, but most importantly, what is going on with this Jaguars team? Caleb, talk a little bit about it because Doug Peterson, he's your guy, and I don't know. I'm feeling a little panic mode here.
I wouldn't go so far as panic mode, but it was certainly not the outcome I expected because I've been very hot on the Jaguars. I think they're a good team. I think they're definitely like dark horse status, but a loss like this. When I was watching a little bit of that game, and when I saw the headline and the outcome, It reminded me of, and you guys can correct me, but wasn't it the Texans that gave the Cowboys a serious run for their money at the end of last season?
Yeah.
Like, they were surprisingly good. They didn't even have Stroud at that point, but they were clearly like, all right, we're talking about draft picks at this point. And yet they had the elements of a team that could, compete well against the Cowboys, who ended up going to the playoffs, And I think it was an important game. I think the mentality, I don't remember the specifics, but it was like the Texans are trying to bring them down with you, which I can appreciate, but they put up a very good fight. So what I think it is Ryans is a good coach. They're still a developing team, but they have pieces there that are like, all right, we're going to keep a watch on them. I think even more than I think the trifecta in my head of teams that are kind of in building phases are the Panthers, Cardinals, and Texans. And I think this kind of shows the Texans in regards, and last year too, is that they have some pieces that like we might have to consider them not as dark horses yet, but they could definitely have the talent to surprise against a team like the Jaguars. So I wouldn't say the Jaguars are trash or it's panic mode, but more that the Jaguars had a bad game. I think maybe they relied on Ridley. Maybe they were just trying to target because they should have spread the ball around. I think Peterson and Lawrence are a great pairing. They have the pieces there. But yeah, maybe they underestimated the Texans or weren't expecting the kind of matchups that they were looking at. And the Texans, like with a defensive-minded coach, were able to exploit that. So, you take away a guy like Kirk and things. I mean, they don't have I think Ridley's probably their most superstar player. Kirk is good too, but I don't know if he's at that level yet. And like their run game, I think they got exposed in some ways, so they're gonna have to. It's a rough week, but I don't think they're over yet.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think it's reason to panic yet. They are 1-2, but let's not forget that this division is pretty bad. I mean, the Titans got shellacked by the Browns, and freaking the Colts also. Actually, the Colts did beat the Ravens, but it's still going to be a close division, and I think the Jaguars will still take it. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't panic too much. It was just definitely a disappointing offensive performance.
They're gonna have to get that figured out though, because I mean, Lawrence is he's not. Okay, he's a weird situation because his first year I count as lost. So he's not a rookie. He's not. He's definitely still young. He's under. I think he's 20. He's under 25 or something. But like, you'd like to see the gears start moving much more efficiently and quicker. If you're the Jaguars, so it's like how many more years of almost being dark horses could they take? Like they better make a good run this year if I'm them. Mm-hmm. And if they're kind of watching the division to see if they make it, because it is, if they're going to be not, I want to say equally bad, but equally average with everyone else, and they're like kind of seeing what help we can get to make it to the playoffs. I don't think that's where I'd want to be if I'm the Jaguars, because then it gives a team like the Texans who didn't expect to go to the playoffs to be like, yeah, we're hyped to be here. We're going to make the most of it. Not to say the Jaguars wouldn't, but it's just a different mentality when you're like, oh, we thought we were building and now we're in the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the division of the AFC South. Remember the Colts? I think it was the last two, not the last 2 years, but like when they had like Phillip Rivers and then they had Carson Wentz. And like, remember the last game of the season, they'd always be in Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a record, like they would always, they've lost like 10 straight against Jacksonville in Jacksonville. And there was a moment where all the Colts needed to do was beat the Jaguars, and the Jaguars might have been like one of the worst teams in the league, and the Jaguars beat them and prevent the Colts from winning. So
I think it was Wentz too at the helm.
Yeah, it was Wentz.
Because I was they should have won. I think everyone thought, even I thought they should have won it because they were that bad at that point.
It's one of those divisions where they all just know how to play them. And the Jags' first game against the Colts with Anthony Richardson, they had a chance to win until a late interception by Richardson. But they had a chance, and we just thought, oh, okay, it's week one. It is what it is. They don't know how to play Richardson yet. But now it's starting to kind of linger towards, the Texans. And it's like next week they're going back home. They're going to London to play the Falcons. So they should have all their fans there, probably more fans in London than they do in Jacksonville. And they're going to play the Falcons, who Falcons right now are respectable. So you beat the Falcons, that's a respectable win. You're back on track. And then you go and play in Buffalo, which that one's just going to be tough.
That's a bloodbath, yeah.
Yeah, but so in this division,
the Bills are inconsistent, to be fair.
True.
Yes, true. Not as inconsistent as the Jags, but I mean, I would say
or Cowboys at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are ranges. Fair enough.
Yeah. But, a little bit of concern. Because I thought they would easily kind of stream through all these division teams. I also started Jacksonville in my defense for another league. They got me like -3. So let's talk about an unfortunate injury to Derek Carr causes the Saints to lose 17-18 against the Green Bay Packers. Derek Carr gets injured. I believe they were up 17-0
nothing.
Wow.
I mean, it really shows, and I was personally wrong on this, and I'll take it to the chin. Derek Carr is a good quarterback, much better step up from, the Andy Daltons, the Winstons, because, man, you saw Jameis Winston step in, and it was ugly. I mean, he could barely get it past the 50-yard line. So respect to Carr.
Do we know what's wrong with him? Did they diagnose it yet?
They said an AC sprain, which
I didn't. Weeks then?
Yeah, I remember some quarterback having this in the past, and I feel like it was like a month, something like that.
Yeah, from my understanding, not season-ending.
Yeah, not season-ending.
Hopefully, it's not too much pain, or that sucks, because I think they were my pick for last week of my upset. It was a low range. I was watching that game, and especially towards the end, I mean, they got into field goal range and they missed by a field goal, but it definitely shows that.
Yep.
I'm not saying Carr's the greatest ever, but he's certainly on the upper tier, I would say, of quarterbacks. Above game managers, above potential, even higher than them, like almost a step or two up.
And it does.
So they definitely missed
that
him.
They're going to go into, I believe, next week is when Kamara comes back. So It's unfortunate that you finally get your superstar back, and then you lose the head of the snake, Derek Carr. Like you lose your quarterback. So it kind of sucks that, like, at least if you won this game, you say, okay, we went 3-0, we're getting Kamara back, but we can at least hold off until Carr comes back. And now you lose to the Packers, 2-1 on the season, and now Kamara's coming back, which, in my opinion, it's gonna hinder Kamara, because now who's worried about Jameis Winston throwing? Like, to be honest, like I had a lot of hope for him. I thought he was one of the best backups in the league, and then he came in and just stunk up Lambeau.
I mean, he was coming in when he wasn't expected to. So if you give him a week of practice, he's gonna be better than he was.
He's a backup, though. Like, you'd think they'd be ready, but I know they don't get a lot of reps. I think I'm not disagreeing with either of you particularly. I think Winston's a unique case, or he's one of the hardest to predict quarterbacks. Like, he has games that are statistically so amazing, and it's just what Winston you're going to get that day. He's just it's crazy, because or he'll do well and have a clean game and be like, all right, he'll manage the game, or he'll do well but then keep the other team in the game.
Yeah,
by like just doing things like, so you don't know. But I'd rather that as a backup than like someone too safe. But I think that's more it than. So it's like, with having Kamara back, will that give him some stability? Will he depend on you don't know. Depends on what Winston you get.
It's funny because he did about the same as Carr as far as like yardage and completion percentage, but it's just the completion, like you're doing freaking 2-yard outs to Tony Jones for 2 yards. Like he wasn't taking any chances, and that and that was the difference with Carr that I'm realizing is he takes those shots to Shaheed, he takes those shots to Olave, when other quarterbacks that they've had in the past wouldn't do that. And that's where you see Winston maybe just didn't have the confidence at the time to do it, was trying to maybe just hold the lead. Like, maybe they just told him to try and hold this lead and don't try and go for points until you really had to. But, it's something to think about when you have Kamara coming back. Will they just bet on Winston and stack the box, and now Kamara's not going to be as effective?
Right. And I also think, against the Packers, like Jordan Love played. Like,
Love
he had some
really
nice
impressed
balls.
Me. He had 250 passing yards, a touchdown.
Right.
He had a rushing touchdown. Battling back from 17 down, and
he was their leading rusher.
Yeah, and I saw some stat that
they didn't have Aaron Jones, right?
Right.
No.
Yeah, Jones and Watson out, but there was a stat that Love had only thrown like 5 completions at home in his career. All the games he started last year and the first 2 games this year were all on the road. So this was his first home game where he was actually the main starter. So I mean, for him to do what he did is very impressive, especially with those injuries.
It's pretty crazy because I was ready to come on the pod and be like, we were a little too early about Love. Like, let's give him more time. Like, we were, it is the Bears. Like, at the end of the day, that first game, it was the Bears.
Right.
They just weren't that great of a defense. But you saw this game and 17-0. You're like, okay, this isn't the second coming of Rodgers. Let's pump the brakes. And then, Carr goes down and you give him this opportunity. And what I love is that not only did he take it, but he ends up winning the game, like single-handedly winning the game for him. And that was Aaron Rodgers-esque, where you have an opportunity, where Rodgers, he would have no 1 second left and have a Hail Mary pass. Or if you just give him an opportunity to make the play, he makes it. And that's what Love did. 17-0, Carr goes down. They have a little spark and they go, all right, let's do this. And he ends up doing it. But not only that, but these receivers, man, they're no freaking joke. Romeo Doubs, 73 yards, a touchdown. Jalen Reed, 63 yards. Let's talk about Christian Watson isn't even playing yet. This would be his number 1 receiver. He's not even playing, and Love's doing this type of numbers. It's impressive. It isn't very impressive.
Well, I said last week when they narrowly lost that I didn't think Love did poorly, but I was still in the bet camp of we don't have enough sample size, and the added fact that was a game, that kind of close game was one that Green Bay was spoiled with Rodgers, not being very good at getting those, and that was a game to prove his clutch mentality, and they didn't get it that time, and part of it is the team doing well, the ball falling your way, but this time they came back and he did it. So I'm not saying he's Rodgers, I'm not saying he's a franchise quarterback. That's certainly very encouraging to see him, from what I saw, drop some great dimes, and like you point out, Jared, the kind of taking advantage of an opponent's weakness, and coming up clutch. I mean, clutch is the defense did let the Saints get into field goal range, and it was a narrow miss, but that's football sometimes. So there's always a bit of luck. But to see them come back 17, down 17, certainly gives a little more credence to the Jordan Love camp of like, all right, he might have learned a thing or two from Rodgers, and maybe the collective NFL is like, man, did Green Bay get another franchise back 3 times in a row? That's spoiled. They're spoiled, but they might. So I think this definitely adds a very good data entry into that sample set for Love, because he threw some dimes. It was fun to watch.
And I just checked. It's a short week for the Packers and the Lions as they play Thursday night.
Finally, a good Thursday night game.
In Lambeau. That is going to be amazing, and I can't wait for that.
With the Ravens, I mean, I was surprised. I tuned out of the Ravens in overtime because it was like, oh, they're in field goal range. I was surprised Lamar and the gang did not finish it. But what you saw was Harbaugh not put. I think Justin Tucker missed a 61-yarder, but because it was short by a couple yards. But then they got into that same range.
I've never seen him miss a kick short. It's always been left or right.
Right. So you hate to think if it's age or something, but what I think, why I tuned out of the game was like, oh, it's Justin Tucker. They're in field goal range. If they get a field goal in overtime because they had gotten the ball back, they win. So I was like, all right, I like to watch, in their entirety some other games. And I tuned back and I was like, oh, they're still playing? How did the Colts get the ball back? It's like, what's going on? And I think part of us relating to the injury issue is like, part of me wonders if Harbaugh lost his confidence in Tucker's range, maybe because he's like, oh, he's thinking in his head, oh, he's old and he just missed one. Another part might be, you don't want a kicker to strain himself on a. It would have been 62, which would have been a yard longer than the previous one.
But Prater hit a 62-yarder today,
right? But
the Cowboys.
I think maybe, in the dome. I don't think I would have done what Harbaugh did, but I could see where it's maybe thinking like, all right,
wait, what did he do? Because I don't know if
he ended up punting it.
They ended up punting, so they
they should have.
For those listening, there was a 61-yard field goal to get the lead and win the game, and it was short. On the Ravens. And so then the Colts get the ball, they punt. Ravens get back into Tucker's field goal range, and it becomes a 62-yarder. And you think he's going to maybe do the field goal again, but he sends out the punt unit.
And then the Colts end up going down the field and hitting a 50-yarder in overtime to win it.
There was at least that one moment. I feel like there might have been 2 times where they got into like Tucker-esque field goal. I could be wrong, but my point is,
give him another chance. I mean,
yeah, like I maybe he didn't want him, like, maybe Tucker in his head is like, oh, I was short. I don't want people to think I'm old, so I'm gonna like really put my weight into this one. And then maybe Harbaugh's trying not to get him hurt, but certainly like just to see such a complete loss of confidence, because I know he missed it short and it's a yard more, but it's just a yard more. Like, and it's Tucker, so I think that definitely contributed to the Ravens losing.
All right, I think that'll be it for we talked about a lot of games. So we'll wrap this. Yeah, we wrap this reaction up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you so much for listening. If you haven't followed us over on TikTok and on Instagram at Dorm Debate Podcast, throw us a follow over on there. And if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 5K. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. Thank you guys again so much for joining us. And as always, we will see you guys next week.